Hello everyone, Rob Guest from football.london here and welcome to the latest episode of Gold and Guest Talk Tottenham, sponsored by NordVPN. Joining me today, it's Alistair Gold and also Lee Wilmot. How are you both?
I'm good. It feels like a busy podcast today with lots of views, lots of opinions, lots of insight, hopefully, and lots to talk about as well, as the transfer window has now slammed shut on our fingers. And we've hopefully finished writing about it, but probably not. But it's going to give us loads to talk about today, especially.
Yeah, you are all good, Wilma?
I'm all very well, thank you. Yeah, I hope the glass didn't smash in that window as it slammed shut. And I'm hoping we don't talk anything about an actual match that happened at the weekend.
No, I think we can skip over that now. That seems days away. So what we'll do, we'll talk about the transfer window, what happened on the final day for Spurs. One incoming, Randall Kolo Muani, on a season-long loan deal from PSG. Spurs obviously tried to get him in January, went to Juventus instead, but managed to get him now, second time of asking. There was a couple of departures. Brian Hill has left Tottenham after 4 years. He's gone on a permanent transfer to Spanish side Girona, where he was on loan last season. And then Manus Solomon, he's also headed to Spain. He will be playing his football for Villarreal and can actually come up against Spurs now in the Champions League come September. So first of all, Ali, we'll start with Kolo Muani. Thoughts on the deal?
I think it makes sense. I think it's a very un-Spurs-like deal. It's very unusual for Tottenham to coach and develop a player with nothing at the end of it as a potential long-term thing. But I think it shows two things, really. The importance of bringing in another kind of key player and also covering, Dominic Solanke's got this ankle issue at the moment. Richarlison, obviously, availability issues over the years. Covering that kind of striker pile, but also he's a guy that can play on the wings as well. So there's a bit of cover there if needed down the flanks. I also think there's a touch, if we're going to be honest, of desperation to it if you're going to agree to simply a loan deal, because, like I said, that's just not a Spurs thing. So it shows that they just really wanted another body in of the required quality. And he is. He's a very experienced player. He's played in the Champions League something like 14 times, I think I remember writing. Scored a few goals in it. He's adapted to lots of different leagues and quickly. Was he been Germany, France, Italy? I mean, Juve, I think he scored 8 and 16 in Serie A in their half season. So it's not like he's a guy that kind of fumbles around, takes a while to adapt to new environments and leagues. So that's another ready-made player to come in and hit the ground running. Yeah, I think a good deal overall. It is another loan deal, and that's another aspect that we'll look in terms of the money spent by Spurs and other clubs. But I do think to round off a window with 4 players that improve your starting 11 is probably a success in that respect that we haven't had at Spurs in recent years, especially last summer.
Yeah, Wilma, in terms of Kolo Muani, then where does he fit in for you? Do you actually play him as a striker, his natural position, or would you be, minded to play him from the wing instead?
I think, I think I'd play him through the middle. It's going to be interesting to see that battle between him and Richarlison at the minute. We don't know how long Dom Solanke's going to be out for. Obviously, hopefully not too long. But Richarlison's obviously started the season really well. Saturday accepted, but that's probably the same for a few players in the team on Saturday. I think he plays through the middle for me. He's got that kind of stature. I think he's got a bit of pace about him as well, and I think his physicality will probably see him adapt to the Premier League a little bit better than perhaps some other players coming from abroad. So it'll be interesting to see. But I was going to ask Ali about you know what it's like being a journalist during the transfer window. There's links all the time, there's names all the time, and you have to sift through everything that's coming about. As you said, Spurs were linked in the past. Was there any reason why we didn't go for him in the past, or why it didn't happen in the past, or and why it's kind of happened now?
There was some indication that he kind of preferred to head off to Juventus, wasn't it? I think that was his kind of primary who he was eyeing up, and obviously Juve couldn't get the deal done this summer for him on a permanent basis. So whether that's something to do with it or whether it's just different time, different scenario, I don't know. Like I say, I still do feel like this was an opportunistic signing more than a carefully, meticulously planned out one. And that's probably my biggest bugbear about this window, is that I can appreciate a lot that's been done, but I can also, it just feels to me like a lot of opportunities. Even Xavi Simons, who we'll talk about, I think even that was an opportunity, a great one, don't get me wrong, but I still don't feel like it was part of the original plan. And look, I know you've got to roll with the punches, and there's been a lot of punching going on at Tottenham. They have been battered in a certain couple of deals. But yeah, I think with Muani, it was just a case of he became available. He's a quality experience signing. It's, what is it, 5 million euros for the loan. It's kind of a bit of a no-brainer if he turns out to be a big success. Then you've got to deal. It's a good problem to deal with in a way because he'll have been a success, but then you've got to figure out if you're going to sign him at the end of it all. PSG and Spurs do have a very good relationship. I think the hierarchy at both clubs get on very well, so we'll see. But that's a long way off. He's just got to get going from the start against probably West Ham, hasn't he?
I don't think anyone would have any issues. Sorry, if that deadline day signing had been made when the other business had been done earlier in the window. It's like, oh, here's an opportunity right at the end of the window. Yeah. We'll take it. But because Xavi Simons was done so late as well, after being burned by Nottingham Forest, after being burned by Eberechi Eze, everyone wanted the work to be the business to be done because the likes of Liverpool and Man City and Chelsea and Arsenal, they were all getting their business done early. And yeah, if 2 or 3 deals had been done and then Kolo Muani was, as you say, that opportunistic signing on deadline day, they're great. But because there's been another one that's been so late and too late, well, not too late because there's plenty of the season to go, but it just felt like too late when we wanted to get set up before the season started.
I think in an ideal world, you do want all your players in good time ahead of the season. So obviously you can work on things in pre-season. But I think the most important thing is you do actually get those players in, whether it's at the end, whether it's at the middle, that you finish the transfer window and improved in a number of positions. I think that is probably the case for Spurs, bringing in those 4 players, Kudus, Polinia, Simons, Kolo Muani as well. I mean, I've spoken previously on the podcast what Ange said in his final press conference, wants experience, want the Champions League experience, and all 4 of these players do have that, and they improved the 11. Go back 12 months ago, it was only Dom Solanke who, came in to the starting 11 straight away. Archie Gray, Lucas Bergvall, but have put themselves into a good position going forward now with the year's worth of experience on the belt. So I think it's been some good signings. I think what's exciting is the versatility when you're looking at the front 4 now. Kudus, Simons, Kolo Muani, Richarlison as well, if we're going to say he's the starting striker at the moment, because you can play Kolo Muani through the middle. You can move Richie to the left if you wanted. Simons can play from the left. Kudus can play all across the 4 as well. It's a lot of options there. I think that means Thomas Frank can actually switch things up during the game. Spurs can be really fluid, which could be a really good thing for the team going forward.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's the key with a lot of the kind of new signings this summer, the versatility, isn't it? It really is. They can play all over the place. And yeah, I mean, even with Xavi Simons, it's a bit like, is he going to be the number 10 now on that set, or does he end up being the Sonny replacement, the number 7 on the left? He kind of seems to be kind of equally happy in both areas. So, yeah, it's very much how that's going to work. I'll tell you what, there also is a lot of pace now in that team. I mean, Schumann's, so I think we've got to call him Xavi, haven't we, really? I think that's what he wants to be called. So I'm going to call him that from now on, rather than when Siemens. He's got the pace. Kudus, we know, has got the pace. Muani's got a turn of pace about him as well. That's going to be 3 pretty rapid players. I just wanted Savinho to complete the lot, and it would have been the speedster Spurs for the season. I mean, I'll go straight in there. Have Spurs spent enough money this summer? Go on, Lee. You can go for it.
What a question! What a question that is. To the Daniel Levy apologist. No, I don't think so. No. When you look at the amounts that other clubs have been spending,
do you want the numbers? I can give you the numbers.
Give us the numbers.
My article I wrote earlier. So these, I should stress, are from footballtransfers.com, which the BBC used in the list. So they have got Tottenham at 181 million this summer, but I think that includes Kevin Danso's 21 million to make his loan.
So 160 then.
I think about 160. Feels about right. And they recouped 36 million. So above them in the list, Forest, 205 million spent this summer. United, 216. Bearing in mind that was a team Spurs beat in the Europa League final. Newcastle, 250 million, albeit offset by the Isak money. Arsenal, 255 million. Chelsea, 285. Do you know how much Chelsea made in sales?
Oh, they made loads, didn't they?
It was about 300, was it?
Almost. 288, apparently. They had to make a profit, didn't they, by UEFA's punishment kind of thing. So they made a 3 million profit. And how much Liverpool spend according to this list?
So it's 200 plus, 250 almost for Wirtz and Isak, isn't it? And then there's Frimpong and Kerkers, and so 340, something like that, maybe?
415 million.
Wow.
They did get 187 million back. But yeah, I mean, if we're going to, I don't know if we include Danso, because it does feel like that was in a deal that was agreed last season as an obligation, in January. So if we're saying 160 and the champions have just spent 415 million pounds, it's like, how are you going to jump up from 17 up to that kind of level if you're, albeit brought in some good signings, but that's a hell of a gap in spending. And also shows how rubbish Spurs are at selling players. The amount those other clubs have recouped as well.
Yeah, I think for me, it's not about who spends the most money in the transfer window, who wins it. It's who brings in the best players. There may be a club way down that list who has the best window overall when you get to May and look back at the signings who've made an impact.
You're saying Spurs won the window then?
I'm not saying Spurs won it. But no.
They had a good window, didn't they? Reasonable window.
Everton had a very good window, I think. But what I would say is, you're looking at the money spent. As I said, it's not who spends the most, it's who brings in the best players. Yes, Spurs they may be quite far down the list in comparison to some of those at the top. But I think they brought in some good players. I still think they're short in a couple of positions. I think centre-back probably needed that extra player for cover, given Luka Vuskovic has gone to Hamburg on loan. Probably could have done with another left winger to replace Son, unless the idea is for Xabi to play there going forward at the moment. But yeah, maybe could have spent a bit more. But look, in previous years when Spurs have spent big, 2019 probably spent a lot more than some of the clubs. Look how those signings turned out.
I just wonder if that lack of sales is actually starting to affect them FFP-wise eventually. Because, it's just so bad at selling players. I mean, we saw it last night. Just a player that, Brian Hill's played, I think it was 43 times across 4 years. One of Fabio Pratici's great ones. Yeah, that man cooks. It's just crazy. He's gone out for 10 million euros. They signed him for 24 plus Lamella back in the day. Yeah, cracker. Absolutely.
Alistair Gold down with the kids talking about cooking there. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I get Guesty's point. Absolutely. Like you've kind of hit the nail on the head with the 2019 spend and what Spurs did there. The only thing I would say, it's not how much you spend. It's the quality that you bring in. The only thing I would say is that looking at the champions, they've gone and spent £250 million almost on Florian Wirtz and Alexander Isak. Now, Alexander Isak is one of the best strikers in the Premier League, so they've signed clear quality. And Wirtz, we don't know whether he's going to adapt quickly or not to the Premier League, but he is an outstanding player that they've signed. Time will tell whether he's actually proved to be a very good signing or not, and whether he does make it in the Premier League. But they've spent big on two big signings, whereas you look at what Spurs have done, and I think the signings that we have made have been good, strong signings. As you say, they improve the 11. But yeah, when everyone around you that you're trying to chase, particularly having finished 17th, is spending that money and really improving their squad, have we done enough? Probably not.
We'll talk about some of the outgoings then now. Brian Hill to Girona, 4 years at Tottenham. I think it was less than 50 appearances in total.
Yep.
A move that just never worked out for him. Numerous loan spells back in the league. I thought his current injury may jeopardise a move in the summer window, but a return to Girona in the final few hours of the deadline. How would you sum up his Tottenham career then?
I looked back last night because I remembered asking Conte about him. Do you remember he had that great night against Crystal Palace?
Yeah.
Selhurst Park.
The pass for Harry Kane.
Yeah, didn't he get 2 assists that night?
It might have been 2, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the 4-0, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I looked it up and I thought, I feel like I remember asking Conte about him. And I looked back and that was the night that he said, Brian Hill is born to play football and that's why I'm comparing him to Bernardo Silva and stuff like that. And I was like, I forgot about the Silva comparison, which it's one of those that sounds mad, but he's a lovely footballer in terms of he's got the technique, he can dribble past a player, but I don't think I've ever seen a player so poorly scouted in terms of can he be a Premier League player. It's like, I get that there's the odd smaller player that makes it in the Premier League, absolutely. But even 4 years on, he still looks essentially like a little boy. He's not got a Premier League kind of stature, as it were, physicality and physique. That was the word I was scrambling for. And it's a shame because I do love him as a player. I think he'll have hopefully a really good career in La Liga, and I think he's shown that with Girona last season. At points, he had some good moments for them. I think probably the team that's done best out of all of it was Sevilla. They sold him, got a load of money, got Eric Lamela, got him back about a year later on loan as well, and have just been kind of watching what's happened, probably just thinking, what? Because Spurs he goes in the Paratici failure list with the likes of Galini and Nuno, and there's others that have gone out of my head right now. Essentially, if they're not from Juventus or Serie A, then they probably haven't done particularly well. But it just had to happen. I'm just surprised it's taken this long, to be honest. It's just Spurs kind of grasping about trying to move a player out the door, and we saw that with Manor Solomon as well, a player that's had 6 appearances for Spurs in 2 years. It's just crazy. It's just some of these signings. And I think that's a key thing about this window that we can kind of look to and go, like, yes, these are actually players that very much you can see are for the now. They're big, high-quality, top-draw players. There's no question about whether they're for the future. Takai is probably the only one. Tell, you could say as well, maybe for the future. But that strong bunch of 4 players that will kind of start games. I think hopefully we're moving away from the point where Spurs just sign cheap players hoping they'll become someone, I suppose.
Yeah, just on Brian Hill, I think you've got to look back at January 2024 when there was a chance to go to Brighton on loan, and that never happened. And you're just thinking, if he'd gone there at the time and played a lot, would that have maybe improved his chances at Spurs? But he stayed at Spurs, didn't he, that win, and just barely got a look in after that, really.
I can't see how that would have made any. He's still not a Premier League footballer for me. I don't think anyone thought that he was, as Ali said, his kind of stature and physicality. I don't think anyone saw him as a Premier League footballer when he signed 4 years ago, or was it 4 years? Was it that? How long he's been there? Yeah,
summer of 21. Yeah, I think he's shown glimpses at times. Crystal Palace one, and Ange put him in from the start. The Man City 3-3 game.
Was that the one where he had a really nice moment on the edge of the box in the Spurs half and set someone away? I can't remember who it was. And then he took him off at half time. Yeah. Everyone was like, what? Yeah.
But I mean, that pretty much summed up his Spurs career, really.
Yeah.
A couple of nice bits and then nothing much after that. So
that was it. We had a great press conference early on, though, where we asked him about his hair. I remember that. Someone asking about his hair and being like the Beatles. That was probably a highlight.
Right, moving on to Manor Solomon then. It looked like he was going to go to Crystal Palace on deadline day. Quite why you'd want to be dealing with Palace after what happened with Eze, who knows? But in the end, that move to Selhurst Park fell through, and a late loan deal to Villarreal came to fruition instead. Thoughts on that one then for Manor?
Well, just I'm with you. I'm like, why would you go back to Palace? It's like, yes, I know there was some kind of, Eze was kind of the driver, I think, and Arsenal obviously of what happened to Spurs, but to go back to Palace, and there were some suggestions that Forest were maybe interested as well. It'd be like the most amazing deadline day U-turn ever. And that just, it all felt like it was getting somewhere. Both clubs signed the deal sheet. It was heading there. Spurs had accepted the terms that Palace wanted. I think they were just willing to just let him go, kind of thing. And then it just kind of felt a bit like it was getting towards the end of the 2 hours extra you get. It was like, this isn't happening, kind of thing. And then, lo and behold, Palace had pulled out. Spurs weren't the only club that they kind of, I think, messed about a little bit on deadline day. And then, they scrambled and managed to get a loan deal to Villarreal before the later La Liga window closed. So in the end, they kind of got what they wanted. I know there was some stuff early in the day about Manor Solomon wanting to stay at Spurs and looking likely to stay at Spurs. I think that was probably his ideal thing. He feels like he's a Premier League player, and that's kind of what he can do. And he wanted to succeed at Spurs, but ultimately, he was never staying at Spurs. Come on. I mean, where was he fitting in? Where's he playing? He only got on the bench the other day because Solanke was injured. He had a terrific season at Leeds. I'm surprised that deal didn't happen at some point, that they tried to get him back again. But yeah, ultimately, I don't think we'll probably ever see him play for Spurs again, barring a huge turnaround in his fortunes or Tottenham's.
That whole situation yesterday just reminded me of Brad Pitt in Moneyball, and just the conversations quickly over the phone. Do you want this player? We'll take this player. You can have him if you want. Oh no, I'm just sending him over here. Just madness how Villarreal were just there. Once everything broke down with Palace, we'll send him here instead.
What must that be like for the player as well? It's like at one point they're just staying in London but slightly different part, and then the next they're suddenly moving to Spain. It's just mad how footballer's life is.
That's not a bad move for him, though, to be fair. Is it Villarreal, Crystal Palace? I think he's come out of it all right. But Spurs do have a good relationship with Villarreal.
Yeah.
Lo Celso's gone on loan. Serge Aurier went there. Was he a free agent? I think so. But there's a good relationship there. So Solomon coming back to haunt Tottenham Tuesday, September the 16th in the Champions League.
I know.
100%.
Probably. Absolutely. After me saying he'll never play and all this, there's a couple, aren't there? Because Muani can play against PSG as well. So it's funny how the loan is completely different, the rules in Europe. They don't want any club to have, in their words, any advantage or control over another team's starting lineup or squad. Whereas in the Premier League, it's like, no, you're not playing. You can just guarantee, can't you? Solomon, hat-trick of assists or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's happened before in the Champions League. Coutinho scored twice against Barcelona when he was a Bayern Munich player.
Even
Courtois helps knock Chelsea out when he was at Atletico. Asensio played for Villa last year against PSG. So there's numerous examples. It does happen quite a bit. So, right then, transfer window as a whole, what marks are we giving it?
Go on, Lee, you start.
Well, there's been good additions in the forward areas, I think. I'm very excited about Xavi Simons and what he can do, and hopefully he doesn't feel like he's third choice from Tottenham's point of view after the Gibbs White and Eze situations. Matisse Tell, obviously, signing permanently, was more than happy with that after the kind of glimpses we got last season. Kudus, exciting player. In a forward area, Kolo Muani, obviously, I think, as I've said previously already, I think he's suited to the Premier League. I don't know. I just feel like there's a little something missing. Thomas Frank wanted another centre back, of course, and we're going to discuss the squad issues a bit later on in the podcast. I do still think there's a shortage at the back, given what happened with Romero and Van der Ven last season. He wanted another winger. Do we need another winger? I'm not sure. Not convinced. So yeah, maybe one short might have been nicer. I think it would have been good to get Yves Bissouma out the door and potentially bring in another central midfielder. But that's me being very picky, I think. So yeah, probably I'd put it at 6.5 out of 10, maybe for the transfer window, maybe 7. But I think maybe 7 suggests I'm really happy with it when I'm not quite.
I didn't realise we were going 0.5s. I think I might go for a 7. I think there's a lot more that could have been done. And like I said, I think spending more, I absolutely take Guesty's point on, Spurs have spent a fair bit and had windows where they've been horrendous on reflection. But I still do think they didn't spend enough to really, truly keep up with the top teams. And maybe spending a little bit more might have got you a Savinho, might have got you Semenyo earlier in the summer, maybe. Ones like that. Maybe could have got Eze before all of the mess happened. Maybe even Gibbs White if they put in a far bigger bid to begin with. So yeah, maybe it's on terms of for certain players rather than overall. But I'd still go 7 purely because I don't remember a window for a long time where they've brought in 4 really strong starters. I was trying to think. Postecoglou's first summer, I know it was only a couple of years ago, but I suppose you had Maddison. Maybe that's as close as you're going to get. Maddison, Vicario, Van der Ven, and Johnson, probably. Even though Johnson, I don't think was expected to be the big starter and ended up being it week in, week out. But I would say probably in terms of players seen on a certain level, maybe this one's bigger in that respect in terms of the starters. I mean, Kudus is a big signing from another Premier League club. So I would go 7. I agree on the centre-back situation. I know a lot of people kind of didn't feel they needed another centre-back, but I agreed. I think they do, especially for a manager who will play with a back 3 sometimes. I think they struggled there in the final weeks to find the required quality he wanted, yet be a player that wanted to come and potentially play second fiddle to Romero and Van der Ven. I can understand that being a bit of an issue. I know some might point to Hincapié going to Arsenal and seeing that, well, how comes they can do that? But I don't know. I just feel like Spurs have always seemed to have these weird issues. Go on, sorry.
I'm not convinced Hincapié is as strong a centre-back to kind of want to demand to be first choice, as opposed to someone like, if I was going out and filling that centre-back hole, I would have been going to Crystal Palace and saying, here's 35 million for Mark Gay. But then Mark Gay is probably too good to be sat on the bench. So it's a difficult situation in that regard. And I think as happy as I am with Kudus and Palhinha and Xavi Simons and Kolo Muani, obviously, there's just this element, I think, from my point of view of, because it took a couple of weeks, and there's no disrespect to Ange Postecoglou whatsoever, because it took a couple of weeks for everything to be sorted with Ange, because he'd won the trophy and the club didn't want to be seen to be sacking a manager that just won a trophy so quickly. It took a couple of weeks for Thomas Frank to come in, and then we had a couple of weeks of him being on holiday or not kind of being set, and he wanted to look at the squad and stuff. And in that time, the likes of Norgard, who would have fit his system perfectly, had already made a decision to go to Arsenal. Brian Mbeumo already wanted to go to Man United when, if it had been done earlier, perhaps he could have been convinced to come to Spurs and not have that. I know what you're saying, but then there might have been an opportunity. There's an Eze that didn't happen. Morgan Gibbs-White didn't happen, obviously. So there's just little things that I think, if in a parallel universe, probably could have been done quicker and better.
So you're saying it's Daniel Levy's fault?
Yes.
I think the transfer window probably does play out differently if there's no managerial change.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That definitely slows things down in terms of Frank coming in, having a look at the squad. But I think there's been some good signings there. The 4 we've mentioned who had Champions League experience, who had plenty of experience to the starting 11 and strengthen it and help take it to another level. I mean, there were question marks of a Kudus from some fans when he signed, given he didn't have the best of seasons at West Ham. But look at what he's done in his first few games. I think he's a good signing. Polina, that experience, that screen Tottenham need in front of the back four. I think that's a good signing. Simmons or Xabi, statement signing. I think you could maybe say a better signing than Eze or Gibbs-White, given he's younger, maybe a bit more a higher ceiling. He's done really well in the Bundesliga for the Netherlands national team as well. And Kolo Muani is someone who can come in and score goals, playing a few positions as well. So I think there's been some good signings there, and at least they've got them done. I still think they're short in a couple of areas, but as we were saying in terms of left wing, if you bring in another left winger, you've got squad issues in terms of the Champions League, which we're going to go into shortly anyway. So I think they've got the business done in the end, probably short on a couple of positions. I'd give it 7.5.
I knew you were going to go 7.5.
Did you?
Yeah. Yeah, no. I think that's fair. I just should also say on Yves Bissouma, he could still go technically. Turkish window's still open as well. The only thing that kind of bothers me slightly is that they were going to sign Morgan Gibbs-White, knowing that they had James Maddison at that point. So they clearly wanted 2 number 10s, and they haven't got 2 number 10s because Maddison obviously is going to miss most of the season. Kulusevski is expected back. It's before the end of the year, potentially December, unless there's a kind of a really quick recovery. So you are going to have to just make do with 1 number 10 for quite a while. And Spurs' true way, you just know there's an injury coming at some point. It's one of those. It's weird. I can see the positives in the window, but I can also see where the little areas where they've maybe left themselves a bit short. I'm still not entirely sold on the fullbacks being enough, but that's another area. I think maybe they're playing on the versatility of Jed Spence, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see come May how good the transfer window it has been for Spurs. In the meantime, time to talk about our sponsor, NordVPN. I'll let you two fight over who wants to talk about Nord.
Are you going to do it, Lee, on this occasion?
No, Ali, you've got the fans on board with that. I'm always a poor stand-in when I have to do it, mate.
I don't know about that. You can never be a poor stand-in, ever. NordVPN. I mean, I don't know whether with some of these scouting for transfers that was done over this summer, whether the people at Tottenham Hotspur needed NordVPN on their travels to help them do all the various things you can do with Nord as they went out and about across Europe and the world to look at the players that they mostly didn't sign. I mean, I've said it before, but Nord gives you so many different things you can do with it. You can watch things from abroad when you're back home in the UK. You can watch things from the UK when you're back, when you're away on your travels. You can watch streaming services. You can watch films, sporting events, anything just by switching your device to thinking it's in a completely different region. You could be abroad on your holiday and you could access all of your streaming services that you pay for back home, which is madness that you can't do that anyway. So Nord allows you to do that. It also protects your private data, like your bank details, passwords, and your online security and identity. I mean, you could save money technically if you're going to buy stuff from abroad. You could purchase flights, hotels, subscriptions from other countries at a cheaper price. It's a terrific service that gives you so many different things, and it is something that I have used on all of my travels. NordVPN's threat protection feature as well protects you from viruses, malicious malware, and phishing sites. And it is the fastest VPN in the world. So it means you've got no buffering, no lagging, and you can stream your favorite shows from anywhere in the world without your bandwidth throttling. It is essentially premium cybersecurity for the price of a cup of coffee per month, even though that's what I'm told. I don't drink coffee, but apparently that's all it costs. And you can also use one NordVPN account on up to 10 different devices. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/goldguest. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risks with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. And in case you missed it there, the link is in the podcast episode description box.
We probably need a different thing to say there, don't we? Because I don't think any of us on this call really drink coffee, do we? I don't drink a lot of coffee. Not really a big fan. Guesty, I don't think I've ever seen you drink a coffee.
Nope, I don't.
I'm a child. A hot chocolate is about the only hot drink I'll have. I haven't grown up yet.
All right, let's move on to the fun bit of the podcast now, and it's Champions League. Yeah,
Said no one ever.
Champions League squad rules. I think as everyone knows, Spurs are going to have to submit a 25-man squad for the Champions League. Usual rules apply. Maximum of 17 non-locally trained players. Then you can have 4 association-trained players, 4 club-trained players in there. Tottenham have quite a number of players, let's say, 6 in total, who we're going to need cutting from the final squad. Is that right, Ali? Said everything right. This is your baby, after all.
God, I don't know how it's associated and become my baby. I don't think Ange helped, did he, by mocking me, going in press conferences about it, playfully mocking me. Yeah, I mean, in essence, it's an issue that Spurs have had for years. If you're new to all of this, it's mainly centres around the lack of club-trained players at Spurs because they've sold the likes of Harry Kane, Harry Winks, Oliver Skipp, players like that over the years, and they haven't really replaced them with players coming through their academy. It's been a big failing, really, if you look at it in that perspective. So it all means that they've only got 1 club-trained player, really, in Brandon Austin, for 4 spots in their European squad. You must fill those 4 spots. Otherwise, you have to leave any spots you cannot fill free. So a 25-man squad becomes a 22-man squad because you're leaving 3 of those spots open. Then you have other issues where the Champions League squad is completely different to the Premier League squad, mainly on the under-21s. Under-21 players in the Premier League can just fit in from any country in the world. You could sign a 21 and under player from anywhere, and you don't even have to register them in your Premier League squad. They fit nicely in the under-21s list. In Europe, that is not the case. They cannot do that. So you end up with a bigger, bloated list of players. So, yes, in essence, Spurs in their Champions League squad have a 22-man squad, but they've got 20. Let's work this out exactly so we can get it right. I've got the numbers here. Yeah, let's do it by bits. So you've got non-locally trained players, or essentially foreign players, you could call them. You've got 17 you're allowed of those. Spurs have got 21. The association trained players, you can have 4 of those. They've got 6. If you've got any more over the 4, you've got to fit them into your main squad. And like I said, they've only got 1 club trained player. All of which, as you said at the start, means they've got 6 too many players to fit into this Champions League squad, which has to be submitted tonight. I think it's 11 o'clock UK time it must be in by. So straight to Lee. Who are the 6 players they should leave out?
Anyone who's watching on YouTube can see I wasn't really paying attention to you there. I had my head down because I was furiously taking notes about everything that's going on and the entire squad. First of all, me and Guesty had a quick chat while you were taking so long to write a story before we got onto the podcast.
Apologies for putting time and effort into my long read on the transfer window.
As you should be. So, yeah, we were talking about the goalkeeper situation, and yes. I did look before we came on the pod, and you must name 3 goalkeepers, but only 2 of them have to be on the list A team. So it could invariably be that Antonin Kinski is left out like he was last season under the second half of last season under Ange, because Thomas Frank could name Vicario Brandon Austin as the only club-trained player on the list, and a youngster like Luka Gunter potentially as the third choice. So Kinski is potentially one. Whether I would do that or not, I don't know, given his experience and the lack of experience from obviously putting a young goalkeeper in there. So that's one option. I came up with 4 that I would definitely leave out, and then it's up for debate for the other 2, I think. I think Yves Bissouma is left out because he's looking to leave, and I don't think he's got a place in the squad anyway. I don't think he needs to be there in the midfield. Mm-hmm. James Maddison is left out because he's out for majority of the season, so that's an easy choice. I would go with Dejan Kulusevski as being left out because I think he's going to miss at least 4 of the 8 league games. Probably 5 or 6 if he's not quite up to speed. So you're putting him in a squad for potentially 2 or 3 games towards the end. So I'd probably leave him out. And then I think Kota Takai is probably the other one of the 4 guarantees that I would have in leaving out. Then you're looking at Austin. Austin has to be in there. Kinski as being potential. And then you're in really dangerous territory of where does the other one come from? You've got so many wide players in that squad that I think one of them has to miss out. I think you're going to talk about it, Ali. I think a lot of people on social media have been talking about potentially Ben Davies being left out, but he's so versatile, can play across the back, perhaps not at right back, but across the back line elsewhere. And you're lacking in defenders if you're leaving Takai out. You're definitely lacking in defenders if you decide to leave Radu Dragusin out as well, because he's not quite match fit yet. So yeah, then it comes down to me, I think, between Odobert and Tell potentially for one other spot. I hope I didn't break up there. I saw you pause for a minute. So
no. You were fine. So who are you going for? Go on, name your 6.
Right. So if you're putting me on the spot right now, I'm going to say Bissouma, Takai, Kulusevski, Maddison, Odobert, and Dragusin, I think.
Okay. Sorry, did you keep Kinski in?
Yes, I kept Kinski in.
I would say Luka Gunter hasn't gone out on loan yet, which maybe tells me something, perhaps, but maybe not. Go on, Guesty. What's yours?
Similar to Wilma. My thinking is, in terms of the association trained players, Maddison out for the vast majority of seasons. Hayes comes out, then I'd be taking 5 from the, non-homegrown players. First one to take out would be Kinski, because I think you're looking at the other positions. You need a bit of strength in depth. Brandon Austin, a couple of appearances for Spurs, one in the Europa League last year against Hoffenheim, did well. Luka Gunter can be third choice. Then my next choice, I think it'll be Kota Takai. So my initial feeling was it's one of Dragusin or Takai. Thomas Frank said the other day, Dragusin looking likely to return to training 10 days, 2 weeks away. Might be a bit of time until he gets up to full speed. So what we're looking at, might miss the first 2 Champions League games, potentially back in the squad middle of October for Monaco away. So I'd be keeping him because he could potentially play the last 6 games. So I'd drop Takai, I'd drop Bissouma. I just would. He might not even be at the club anyway in over a week's time.
Yeah.
I'd drop Decky because if you're looking at towards the end of the year, he could potentially miss 6 games and just be back for the final 2 in January. So what's the point in naming him in the squad when you can have someone who's fully fit who can play all 8? So I'd drop Decky, but I think he'd be coming back in February, providing that Spurs do manage to go through. And then the other one to drop, Odobert. I think it's probably between Odobert and Tell. I'd go with Odobert because Tell can play up front as well.
It's such a tough decision, isn't it? It's ridiculous they've got themselves into this scenario. So yes, as Lee alluded to there, I put this out on social media this morning, and some of the replies, and it's great. I like to see the kind of different opinions, but there was a lot of putting Ben Davies in there. There was a lot of putting Archie Gray in there. Mr. Versatile. He's like, he can play everywhere. He would be like a mad one to leave out. You never know, but it would be a mad one to leave out in my mind, because when you've got someone that can play centre back, right back, midfield, left back, it's like surely you want someone, a Swiss Army knife player like that in there. I think there's going to probably have to be a very difficult decision in amongst this. And that's not to say it's not difficult to tell anyone. I always remember Pochettino telling me, and this shows how long the problem goes back, he was heartbroken when he had to tell Juan Foyth that he wasn't going to be in the Champions League. He said it was one of the most difficult things he's had to do. Tell a player you're not going to be playing in the Champions League. And I do think, I think Maddison's an easy one, I think, unfortunately, because he is going to miss this stage. We should stress, you can change it after the the league phase, whatever they call it nowadays, before the knockouts. But Maddison out, definitely Basuma, because they still want him gone, and it just seems a bit daft to kind of include him in there. I think Kinski has to be out, personally. Not to say he's already got used to being out of the European squad, but I just think it is an area where, yes, you've got Brandon Austin and you've got a kind of a young player. And if there was an absolute emergency, I think there's certain rules where you can bring someone else in, isn't there, if they had an absolute nightmare with the goalkeeping roles. So Maddison, Basuma, Kinski. So think Kulusevski could backfire if he comes back a little bit early, and I think it will prove to be a real frustration that he's not available. But I think probably in terms of not having him for months, it seems a bit unfair on other players who are fit now to include him. So that's why I'm going for him as my fourth. I think you have to decide between one of Dragoshin and Takai. I think it comes down to who you think will be the fittest, quickest, I think, probably. Because they're both coming back to training at roughly the same time. But for Takai, he's going to not have had 9 months out of the game, essentially. Whereas with Dragoshin, he's already said he's probably going to need, 2 months, I think, like a real extended pre-season to be ready. And also the fear over an ACL. So it could be maybe that Takai gets in there. And then the last one, it does feel like it's between Odebear and Tell. It really does. Which we could be completely wrong. And it could be some completely surprise name. I'm trying to look at the list of names. I can't possibly think of someone else who it could be. I mean, if he takes out like a Bergvall, there'd be an uproar. Like I said, Archie Gray doesn't really make much sense in that respect. Just don't sign Muani. And even though you could argue, look, he's on loan. He's not a permanent player. So should he be in the squad? But you don't sign a player with Champions League experience and then not use him in the Champions League squad. So I think Odebear, even though he can play as a 10 at a push or on the left or right, I think Tell is probably just that little bit more versatile and experienced to get into the team. So I'm having Odebear as my sixth as well. But he does like Odebear. He does. So
that's the only thing for me. I think what we've seen so far under Thomas Frank, it would... I don't know. I would think he might choose Tell to drop out rather than Odebear, given what I've seen so far. But then things could change. But
I mean, if Kinsley's going and you want another goalkeeper, just re-sign Alfie Whiteman. I don't think he's got a club yet.
Yeah. What was the other one someone suggested? Oh, little things like everyone keeps asking us, like, why don't they just put Matthew Craig in there? And it's a bit like, people said this last season. Do you remember Max Robson last season? Everyone said the same. It's like, I get your thinking, but it's still an empty spot. Because with no disrespect to Matthew Craig, who is a good player, should have hopefully a good career in the Football League, he's nowhere near the first team. He's not training with them or anything. It's not a... I don't even actually know what's happening with him. I think we all expect him to head out and he's got a year left. But yeah, it's just not a viable thing. Dane Scarlett, if he sticks around, I think he gets on the under-21s list, so he's not needed in the club train bit. You could have signed a Carl Walker-Peters, Dennis Sirkin maybe. I don't know if Delhi counts, but I don't think Delhi should be coming back to Tottenham anytime soon. I don't think that's the right move for him at all. But yeah, it's just an utter mess. It'll only be solved when the likes of Bergvall and Gray start to become, I think maybe next year, they'll both be B-list players, I think, in Europe for 2 years. And then I think the year after, they'll be club trained. So that's when it starts to get a little bit better for Spurs, but it's a mess right now. Although, as Thomas said, it's just a minor challenge.
Just minor.
It's just a minor one.
Right, one last thing before we call it a day on today's latest episode of Golden Guest Tottenham. Bit of transfer news to talk about. Lee Wilmot.
Yeah, thanks for that.
You've gone to Villarreal late in the window.
Yeah, I'm joining Manor Solomon, so there was an ulterior motive for me being on the pod today, and it wasn't just to talk about the transfer window and Randall Kolo Muani and Xavi Simons signing. It was just to let everyone know. I know I don't appear on the podcast very often. I just fill in when one of you two are away because you do such a good job.
And you want to talk about Daniel leaving.
And when I want to really get something off my chest about Daniel leaving. Yes, I am. Unfortunately, I'm leaving the company at the end of this week. So this will be my last appearance on the Golden Guest Talk Tottenham podcast, which has been a pleasure seeing grow from humble beginnings to once and twice weekly. Now you two getting together and telling everyone everything that's going on around Spurs. So, yeah, it's been a joy to be involved, and it's been a joy to be involved in football.london for the last 7 years. So it'll be sad to leave, but yeah, thank you everyone who has enjoyed what I've had to say, and I'm sorry to all those who have had bad things to say about me that don't like my opinions. I'll be gone now, so you can listen back in again.
You know, I am still utterly furious at you for going, and that will not play anytime soon. But obviously, it's been a pleasure not only to kind of be on the pod with you when we've shared the microphone, but obviously as a boss as well, you're not half bad at all. So yeah, very, very sad to see you go and still seething with anger.
Right, that's it for today's latest episode of Golden Guest Talk Tottenham. We'll be back later in the week for another episode. But in the meantime, just keep with us at football.london for all your latest Tottenham news. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/goldguest. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on the 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the podcast episode description box.